પાર્ટીમાં તમારું હાર્દિક સ્વાગત છે મહર્ષિ સાથે. શરૂ કરીએ આજનો એપિસોડ. મુદ્દા નંબર 4.5, artistic and aesthetic considerations. In addition to the step described in previous section, there are also some other more artistic and aesthetic aspect one can consider when preparing visual representation. Visual representation of data to make them more interesting and effective. First, when making a visual presentation of data such as pictograph or bar graph, it is important to make it fit in the intended space. એટલે આખા કાગળમાં સમાઈ જાય એવી રીતે આપણે બનાવવું જોઈએ. This can be controlled, for example, by choosing the scale appropriately. As we have seen earlier, it is also described to make the data presentation visually appealing and easy to understand so that the intended audience appreciate the information being conveyed. Let us consider an example. Here is a table of naming the tallest mountain of each continent along with the height of each mountain. चलो पहलू इंडिया છે બરાબર. tallest mountain Asia, Mount Everest 8,848 meter. South America Aconcagua 6,962 meter. North America Denali 6,194 meter. Africa Kilimanjaro, earlier it is also described 5,895 meter. Europe Elbrus 5,642 meter. Antarctica Vinson Massif 4,892, and Australia Cosco Izuko 2,228 meter. How much taller is Mount Everest than Mount Cosco Izuko are Mount? તો 4 times. આ 8,000 છે ને આ કેટલો છે 2,000. એ જ રીતે Mount Denali and Mount Kilimanjaro very different in height. This is not so easy to quickly discern from a large table of numbers. As we have seen earlier, we can convert the table of numbers into the bar graph is shown on the right here. Hence, each value is drawn as a horizontal box. These are longer or shorter depending on the number they represent. This makes it easier to compare at the height of all these mountains at a glance. જો આ રીતે x axis ઉપર શું લીધું બેટા 1000 મીટર 2000 મીટર એટલે 1 unit is equal to 1000 મીટર લીધા height. અને y axis ઉપર શું લીધું મહર્ષિ mountain ranges લીધી. તો જો 2200 છે એ આ પેલું ઓસ્ટ્રેલિયાનું આવી ગયું અને આપણું માઉન્ટ એવરેસ્ટ સૌથી વધારે આવી ગયો. તો however, since the boxes represent the heights, it is better and more visually appealing to rotate the picture so that is the boxes grow upward એટલે vertically ગોઠવવાના from the ground like mountains. A bar graph, vertical bar, is also called a column graph. Column are the pillars. તેનો તો કે પિલ્લર કહેવાય ને બેટા. તો પિલ્લર you find in a building that hold up the roof. Below is a column graph for our table of tallest mountain. From this column graph, it becomes easier to compare and visualize the height of the mountains. જો આ રીતે તો એ છે આ માઉન્ટ એવરેસ્ટ. તો આ વધારે સારું લાગે, ખ્યાલ આવ્યો? So in general, it is more intuitive, suggestive, and visually appealing to the represent height that are measured upward from the ground using bar graphs that have vertical bar or column. Similarly, length that are parallel to the ground, for example, distance between location on earth, are usually best represented using bar graph with horizontal arcs. Figure it out. If you want to visualize represented data of the height of the tallest person in each class in your school, would you use the graph with vertical bar or horizontal bar? Why? તો તમે કયા ગ્રાફનો ઉપયોગ કરશો?
બાર ગ્રાફ.
લાવ વાંચી દો. To visually represent the data of the height of tallest person in each class, bar graph with vertical bar is used because it is more intuitive and visually appealing to represent height which are measured upward from the ground using bar graph that have vertical bar. પછી second question છે, if you were making a if you want to make a table of the longest river on each continent and their lengths, would you prefer to use a bar graph with a vertical bar or with a horizontal bar? Why? Try finding out this information and then make the corresponding table and bar graph which content have the longest river. તો એનો આન્સર છે, આપણે એના માટે હોરિઝોન્ટલ લાઈન લઈશું. કઈ લાવીશું એ બેટા? કેમ કે નદી હોરિઝોન્ટલી હોય ને. તો એનો આન્સર છે, ફોર મેકિંગ અ ટેબલ ઓફ ધ લોંગેસ્ટ રિવર ઓન each continent and their lengths, bar graph with horizontal bar is used. This is because the length that are parallel to the ground are usually best representation using bar graph with horizontal bar. હવે infographics. What is infographics? The short form of information graphics. More attractive graph. ધારો કે આપણે માઉન્ટેન, તો આપણે માઉન્ટેન જેવું દોરી દઈએ તો એ વધારે સારું એટ્રેક્ટિવ લાગે, અપીલિંગ લાગે, વધારે ઇન્ફોર્મેટિવ લાગે. So when the data visualization such as bar graph and further beautified with more extensive artistic and visual imaginary, they are called information graphics or infographs. चलो आप पूछा है परीक्षा, what is infograph? When data visualization such as bar graph are further beautified with more extensive artistic and visual imagery, they are called information graphics or infographics for short. The aim of infographics is to make use of attention attracting and engaging visuals to communicate information even more clearly and quickly in a visually pleasing way. And as an example of how infographics can be used to communicate data even more suggestively, let us go back to the table above listing the tallest mountain on each continent. We draw a bar graph with a vertical bars column rather than horizontal bar to be more indicative of mountains, but instead of rectangles we could use triangles which look a bit more like mountain, and we can add slabs of color as well. Here is a result. જો આવો ગ્રાફ બનશે સરસ, કેટલું સરસ લાગે જો. તો માઉન્ટ એવરેસ્ટ આપણે જોઈને ખબર પડી જાય. While these infographics might look more appealing and suggestive, ચલો આ ઇન્ફોગ્રાફિક્સ કેવું લાગશે બેટા? More appealing and suggestive at the first glance, it does not have some issue The goal of our bar graph earlier was represented the height of various mountains using bar of the appropriate height but the same widths. The purpose of using the same widths was to make it clear that we are only comparing height. However, in these infographics, the taller triangle are also wider. Are taller mountains always wider? The infographic is implying additional information that may be misleading and may or may not be correct. Sometimes going for more appealing picture can also accidentally mislead. Taking this idea further and to make the picture even more visually stimulating and suggestive, we can further change the step of the mountain to make them look even more like a mountain and add other details while attempting to preserve the height. For example, we can create an imaginary mountain range that contains all these mountains. Is the infographics below better than column graph with a rectangular column of each equal width? The mountain look more realistic, but it is a picture accurate. For example, Everest appear to be twice as tall as Elbrus. તો આપણે આ રીતે દોરી શકીએ. જો કેટલું સરસ લાગે. કેટલો સરસ ગ્રાફ લાગે જુઓ તમે. The seven highest peak on the seven continent. What is the 5,642 into 2 while preparing visually? While preparing visually appealing presentation of data, we also need to be careful that the picture we draw do not mislead us about the fact. In general, it is important to be careful when making or reading infographics so that we do not mislead our intended audience and we ourselves are not mislead. Summary. ચાલો હવે આખા ચેપ્ટરની સમરી જોઈશું. ફેક્ટ, નંબર, મેઝર, ઓબ્ઝર્વેશન્સ એન્ડ અધર ડિસ્ક્રિપ્શન ઓફ ધ થિંગ્સ દેટ કન્વે information about those things is called data. Data can be organized in a tabular form using tally marks for easy analysis and interpretations. Frequencies are the count of the occurrence of value, measure or observations. Pictograph. What is pictograph? Represent data in the form of picture or object or part of object. Each picture represent a frequency which can be one or more than one. This is called the scale and it must be specified. Bar graph. We have bar of uniform width, the length or height that indicate the total frequency of occurrence. The scale that is used to convert the length or height to frequency again must be specified. Choosing appropriate scale for a pictograph or bar graph is important to accurately and effectively convey the desired information or data and to also make it visually appealing. Other aspect of graph also contribute to its effectiveness and visual appeal, such as how color we are used, what accompanying pictures are drawn, and whether the bar are horizontal or vertical. These aspects correspond to the artistic and aesthetic side of data handling and representation. However, making visual representation of data fancy can also sometimes be misleading. By reading pictographs and bar graph accurately, we can quickly understand and make inference about the data presented. તો અહીંયા આપણું આ ચેપ્ટર અહીંયા પૂરું થાય છે. તો બાળકો આ ચેપ્ટરને સરસ રીતે તૈયાર કરજો, બરાબર. હવે થોડા તમને એડિશનલ ક્વેશ્ચન આપ્યા હોય તો તમે જાતે અને સોલ્વ કરવાનો પ્રયત્ન કરજો, બરાબર છે. આમાં થોડા ક્વેશ્ચન છે કે એસેસમેન્ટ પેપર આપ્યું છે, હું ફટાફટ બોલી જાઉં છું. The data represented in the form of picture is called pictograph. The bar used to count frequency are called telemarks. A collective of number collected to give some information is called data. Representation of data using rectangle of informations with an equal spacing between them is called bar graph. Data collected directly from the source is called frequencies. Sorry, it is called 5 નંબરનો આન્સર છે સી. સી એટલે એને પ્રાઇમરી ડેટા બોલાય. શું બોલાય? હા. કમ્પ્લીટ ધ ટેબલ. હવે આપણે જે 5 લાઈન આપી હોય તો એને 5 + 5 + 1 એ રીતે કમ્પ્લીટ કરવાનું છે. પછી ચલો એક ઢીંગલી દોરી 10 સ્ટુડન્ટ્સ છે, તો આપણને 5 એવા હોય તો 2 હોય તો 20, 3 અને અડધું હોય તો 35, 2 અને હાફ હોય તો 25, 3 હોય તો 30. એવી રીતે આપણે દોરી શકીએ છીએ. ટીક ધ કરેક્ટ ઓપ્શન. ચલો, ઇન બાર ગ્રાફ ખાલિયા ઓફ ઈચ બાર રિપ્રેઝન્ટ ગિવન ઇન્ફોર્મેશન, લેન્થ ઓર વિડ્થ. તો લેન્થ આવશે. શું આવશે બેટા? A Khalia graph represents the data in the form of picture, the pictograph. If the data is collected directly from source, it is called primary data. Chalo, true, false. First, the purpose of behind collecting data is for giving information and for making conclusion. Right, true. The width of bar and spacing between them in a bar graph have a significance. Wrong. The height of the bar in a bar graph is the most significant because the height of bar is directly proportional to the value of corresponding data. Right. A bar graph is a better method to represent data as compared to the pictograph. Right. For recording and organizing of data, telemarks are used to show frequency. Right. પછી column AB, representation of data using rectangle of uniform width and equal spacing between them is called bar graph. Bar are used to count frequency. Telemarks. Data represented in the form of picture, that is pictograph, and data collected from newspaper is called secondary data. The numerical information is called data. The number of data in group is called frequency. Khalia is the way to represent data using image or object, pictograph. Khalia are usually used to record and organize the data. Telemarks. Telemarks આવશે ને? Okay. And 5, Khalia is a representation of data by a rectangular bar of information width, that is called bar graph. ચાલો, નંબર ઓફ સ્ટુડન્ટ આપ્યા છે એની ઉપરથી દાખલો ગણવાનો કીધો છે, એ તો તમે ગણી શકશો, બરાબર છે. તો અહીંયા આપણે અહીંયા ચેપ્ટર પૂરું કરીએ છીએ. થેન્ક્સ ફોર વોચિંગ વિથ મહર્ષિ. જય શ્રી રામ, જય મહારાજ, જય મહાદેવ, જય હનુમાનજી દાદા, જય શ્રી કૃષ્ણ.
Jai Sri Ram.
થેન્ક્સ ફોર વોચિંગ.
Thanks for watching, like and subscribe.